ever feel like you're drowning in new music tech? Like you're constantly bombarded with new plugins, new updates, new everything. It's tough to keep up.
It really is.
Right. I mean, you want to be on the cutting edge. You want to know what's out there.
For sure.
It's just so much. So today, we're going to cut through the noise and dive deep into something that's got everyone talking. Serum 2. Xfer Records Serum 2.
Big release.
Huge. Now, we've done our homework for this deep dive.
Oh, we have.
We've sifted through mountains of user comments. We've watched hours of YouTube videos, Synth Hacker, Zen World, Weaver Beats, Busyworks Beats, Alice Eve from Mercurial Tones Academy, all the big names. And of course, we've combed through Xfer's own website, all the official documentation, release notes, the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely. We had to be thorough.
We had to, because our mission here is to distill all of that down for you, to highlight what's truly new, what's exciting, and most importantly, what it all means for your music.
Exactly. No more information overload, just the good stuff.
Just the aha moments. So,
Serum. Where do we even begin with this thing?
Well, I think the first thing to say, especially for those already using Serum, is that this is a free upgrade. If you own Serum 1, Serum 2 is yours. No extra cost.
That's huge. I mean, that really speaks volumes about Xfer's commitment to their users.
It really does.
Right. They could have easily charged for this in such a massive update.
For sure.
But they didn't. And I think that says a lot about their philosophy.
I agree.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's take a step back.
Okay.
What made the original Serum so special? What was the vision behind it?
Well, if you go back to Xfer's own words, they wanted to create a dream synthesizer. Something that sounded incredible, of course, and also something that was visually intuitive, easy to use, but with enough depth to really allow for detailed sound design.
And it succeeded. I mean, Serum really did change the game.
It did. It made synthesis accessible, but without sacrificing power.
And Serum 2 builds on that foundation, takes it to a whole new level.
Whole new level. Okay, so let's get into the specifics.
Let's do it.
And I think the biggest news, the most exciting additions, have to be the new oscillator types.
Oh, absolutely. The oscillators are where it's at.
Serum 1 was all about wavetable synthesis, right? But Serum 2 blows that wide open. We're not talking about one new oscillator here. We're talking about 4. 4 brand new oscillator types. So on top of the wavetable oscillator, you now have a dedicated multisample oscillator, a super flexible sample oscillator, a granular oscillator, and a spectral oscillator. It's insane.
It's a sound designer's dream.
It is. So let's break these down one by one, starting with the multisample oscillator. What's the big deal here?
Well, the key thing with the multisample oscillator is that it allows you to bring the sound of real instruments into Serum.
Okay.
So we're talking about things like orchestral instruments, choirs, pianos, guitars.
Wow.
You know, all those organic acoustic sounds that were kind of missing in Serum 1.
So I could have like a realistic string section playing inside my Serum patch.
Exactly. And Serum 2 actually comes with a massive library of these multi-sampled instruments.
Oh,
it's a huge collection, all recorded specifically for Serum.
That's incredible. So you don't even need to go out and find your own samples. It's all right there.
Right. But if you do have your own multi-sample libraries, you can import them too.
Oh, nice.
Serum 2 supports the SFIS-Z format, which is an open standard.
Okay.
So a lot of sample libraries use that. And another cool thing that Zen World pointed out is that the multi-sample oscillator handles different octaves really well. Like if you have a bass sample and you play it up high, it doesn't sound all thin and chipmunky.
All right.
It actually sounds like a real bass being played up high.
That makes sense. So it's not just about triggering samples, it's about making them sound realistic across the entire keyboard.
Exactly. It's a level of detail that Serum 1 just couldn't do.
That's amazing. All right, next up, the sample oscillator. Now this sounds similar, but it's not quite the same, right?
Right. The sample oscillator is also about playing back samples, but it gives you a lot more control over how you manipulate those samples.
Okay.
So you've got your classic FM, phase distortion, regular distortion.
All good stuff.
All the good stuff. But you also have some really cool new features. Like Weaver Beats was really excited about the loop function.
Oh, yeah.
It's got automatic loop point detection, so it can find the perfect loop points in your sample.
Nice.
And you can even modulate those loop points.
Oh, interesting.
You can control the playback rate for those tape stop effects. You can slice up your samples.
Wow.
And there's a really cool tails mode.
Tails mode?
Yeah, so if your sample has a long reverb tail or something, it'll let that tail continue even after you trigger a new note.
Oh, that's smart.
It makes for much smoother transitions.
That's really cool. Okay, now for the oscillator, that always sounds a bit mysterious to me. The granular oscillator.
Yes, the granular oscillator.
This one seems like it has the potential to create some really unique, almost otherworldly sounds.
It does. A very powerful tool for sound design, but it can be a bit hard to wrap your head around at first.
Yeah, I feel that.
Basically what it does is it takes a sample and chocks it up into tiny little pieces called grains.
Grains.
Grains, yeah. And then you can control all sorts of parameters about those grains. Their size, how quickly they're played, the density of the grains.
Okay.
And by manipulating these parameters, you can create all sorts of crazy textures, evolving soundscapes, glitchy effects.
Yeah, it's kind of like taking a sonic photograph and then shattering it into a million pieces.
That's a good analogy. And then you can reassemble those pieces in any way you want.
Wow. And Synth Hacker mentioned that it has looping capabilities too, right?
Right. You can loop the grains forward, backward, or even in this kind of pendulum motion where it goes forward and then backward.
That's so cool. So much control.
So much control. It's really a whole new dimension of sound design within Serum.
Okay, last but not least, the spectral oscillator. This one sounds like it's getting into some seriously deep sonic territory.
It is. This one is all about manipulating sound at the harmonic level.
Harmonic level.
Yeah, so imagine you take a sound and you break it down into its individual harmonics, its overtones.
Okay.
The spectral oscillator lets you analyze those harmonics and then resynthesize them.
Wow.
So you can essentially rebuild a sound from the ground up, manipulating its harmonic content in real time.
That's wild. What kind of creative possibilities does that open up?
Oh, endless possibilities. You can create sounds that are totally unique that you just couldn't get any other way. You can also use it for sound design tasks like removing unwanted frequencies or emphasizing certain harmonics.
So it's a very precise tool.
It is, and BusyWorks Beats pointed out that it could be a game changer for sample pack creators.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, because it lets you analyze and manipulate sound so precisely, you could use it to create incredibly detailed and complex samples.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got 4 brand new oscillator types, all bringing something completely different to the table.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But what about the original wavetable oscillator, the one that Serum was built on? Has that been left behind in all this excitement?
Not at all. The wavetable oscillator is still there, and it's been improved.
Okay, good to know.
Xfer's added some really nice features to make it even more flexible. One of the big ones is a new smooth interpolation mode.
Smooth interpolation.
Yeah, so in wavetable synthesis, you've got these different waveforms, right?
Yeah.
And traditionally, you'd have to manually create all the in-between waveforms to get a smooth transition.
Right.
But with smooth interpolation, Serum 2 does that for you.
Oh, nice.
So you can get these incredibly fluid, organic-sounding transitions between wavetable frames.
That sounds really useful for pads, evolving textures, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And all the other features you love about the wavetable oscillator are still there.
Yeah.
The filters, the FM, the phase distortion, the ring mod, the distortions.
Yeah, all there.
It's all there. Plus, there are these new dual warp modes that Synth Hacker was talking about.
Dual warp modes? What are those?
It's a way to manipulate the wavetables in even more complex ways.
Oh, interesting.
I'm still wrapping my head around them myself, but the potential is huge.
I bet. Okay, so we've covered oscillators. What about filters? Serum already had some great filters.
Some of the best.
What's new there?
Well, this is something a lot of users have been asking for.
Oh, sure.
Dual filters.
Dual filters, finally.
Finally, you now have 2 independent filters that you can run in series or parallel.
Nice.
And Synth Hacker pointed out that the parallel routing is especially powerful.
How so?
Well, because it lets you send different oscillators through different filters.
Oh, I see.
So you could have one oscillator going through a low-pass filter and another oscillator going through a high-pass filter.
Yeah.
And you can blend them together.
That's cool. So you can really sculpt the sound in very detailed ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's some new filter types as well.
Ooh, what kind?
There's a classic acid ladder filter, which will make fans of that sound very happy. There's a really versatile SVF filter that Alice was talking about. You can actually draw your own filter curves with it.
Oh, wow.
And then there's this really interesting one called MG Dirty. Synth Hacker was saying it's got a pain knob.
A pain knob.
A pain knob. It basically lets you dial in this really aggressive, distorted sound.
Sounds fun.
It is. It's definitely for those who like their... It sounds a little rough around the edges.
Okay, so filters have gotten a major upgrade. What about modulation? Serum was already pretty flexible in that department.
Oh, yeah, the modulation system in Serum was already top-notch.
But they've still managed to improve it.
They have. There's a new envelope, for starters, which is always welcome.
More envelopes are always good.
Always good. And the cool thing about this new envelope is that you can sync it to the BPM of your project.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah, so you can create rhythmic patterns with your envelopes very easily. And the LFOs have gotten a major upgrade too.
LFOs.
They've got swing now, so you can add that rhythmic groove. There are these new chaos oscillators, which are basically pseudo-random LFOs.
Pseudo-random?
Yeah, so they're not completely random, but they introduce this unpredictable element to your sounds.
Interesting.
And then there's this really cool feature where you can draw your own LFO shapes.
Draw your own LFO shapes?
Yeah, like literally draw them with your mouse.
That's amazing.
It's so cool. You can create these really complex custom LFO patterns that you just couldn't do before.
That opens up a lot of possibilities.
It does. And even the standard LFOs have been improved. Synth Hacker was pointing out that they have new shape tools and a dedicated editor.
So even more control over your LFOs.
Even more control.
Okay, we've covered oscillators, filters, modulation. What about effects, another crucial part of any synth?
Oh yeah, the effects section has gotten a major overhaul.
Tell me everything.
Okay, so first of all, they've improved the quality of some of the existing effects.
Nice.
The delay, for example, sounds much better now.
Good.
And they've added a bunch of new effects as well.
Like what?
Well, there's a bode frequency shifter, which is great for creating those metallic ring modulated sounds.
Cool.
And there's a convolution reverb.
Ooh, convolution reverb.
Yeah, and this is a big one. It comes with a bunch of factory impulse responses.
Okay.
But you can also import your own.
That's huge.
It is. So you can use your own custom reverb spaces, or you can download impulse responses from the internet.
That's amazing. I love convolution reverbs.
Me too. They're so versatile. And there are 3 new algorithmic reverbs as well.
Algorithmic, okay.
One called Vintage, one called Basin, and one called Nitrous.
Nitrous, huh?
Yeah, and the Nitrous reverb has 5 different modes.
5 modes.
5 modes. So you've got a lot of different reverb flavors to choose from.
That's awesome. What else?
There's a new overdrive distortion algorithm.
Okay.
Which sounds really nice. And Synth Hacker was really excited about this new utility effect.
A utility effect?
Yeah, it's basically designed for tasks like making sure your low-end frequencies are mono.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah, really useful for mixing. But the most exciting addition to the effects section, in my opinion,
okay,
is the splitter module.
The splitter module, what's that?
It lets you split the audio signal by frequency.
So I can, like, send the lows to one effect and the highs to another.
Exactly. So you could have, say, a heavy distortion on the highs, but keep the lows clean.
That's amazing. So much control.
It's incredibly powerful. And you can duplicate effects now, so you can stack them up and create really complex processing chains.
Wow. Anything else in the effects department?
Oh, yeah. There are new buses in the effects section now.
Buses, okay.
So you can route the audio in more flexible ways.
That sounds like it could get pretty complicated.
It can. But it also means you have way more control over how your effects interact with each other.
I see. So effects have gotten a massive upgrade. What about the overall workflow? Anything new there?
Oh, yeah. Tons of new workflow improvement.
Hit me with them.
Well, Synth Hacker mentioned a new mixer tab.
A mixer tab?
Yeah, it basically gives you more control over the internal signal flow of Serum. So you can adjust how much each oscillator is routed to each filter, and then how much each filter is routed to the effects.
Wow, so you can really fine-tune the signal path.
Exactly. It's a level of control that you just didn't have before.
That's awesome. What else?
Well, the arpeggiator has been massively expanded.
Oh yeah, the arpeggiator.
It's got all the standard modes you'd expect, but it also has this really cool pattern mode where you can create your own custom arpeggiator patterns.
Nice.
And get this, there's a built-in piano roll now.
A piano roll in Serum.
In Serum.
That's wild.
It's so cool. You can record MIDI directly into Serum now, and you can even export your MIDI clips.
So it's becoming more of a self-contained production environment?
It is, and both the arpeggiator and the piano roll have savable presets.
Nice.
So you can quickly switch between different rhythmic patterns.
That's awesome. The Zen World was really impressed with that, I remember.
Yeah, he was. He said it adds a whole new dimension to Serum.
I bet. So we've covered oscillators, filters, effects, modulation, workflow. Anything else?
Oh yeah, there's more. There's an improved underrated system.
Always a good thing.
Always good. The wavetable editor has been improved.
Okay.
There's a new audio wavetable algorithm called frequency estimation.
Frequency estimation.
Yeah, it's supposed to be really good at creating accurate wavetables from audio.
Nice.
The keyboard now has global scale and swing functions.
That's handy.
Very handy. You can save and load presets for individual effects or groups of effects now.
Oh, that's a time saver.
Huge time saver. The preset browser has been completely overhauled.
Okay.
It's much easier to navigate, and you can preview sounds directly in the browser now.
Nice. And last but not least,
Macro controls.
macro controls. How many do we have now?
8.
8. We had 4 before, right?
Yep. They doubled it.
That's huge. So much more control.
So much control.
It really does feel like they've thought of everything with this update.
They really have.
Now, we've mentioned some of the reactions from the YouTube creators.
Yeah.
But overall, what's the feeling about Serum 2?
Overwhelmingly positive. I mean, people are blown away by this update.
Blown away.
Blown away. They're calling it a huge deal, absolutely insane, the best sequel ever released.
Whoa.
Yeah, the hype is real.
It sounds like it.
And I think Busy Works Beats put it best when he said that Serum 2 has turned Serum from a wavetable synth into a sound design playground.
I like that.
Yeah, it's no longer just about wavetables. It's about creating any sound you can imagine, using any method you want.
So it's kind of in the same league as synths, like Contact, Omnisphere, Pigments.
Exactly. It's a true powerhouse now.
Were there any downsides mentioned?
Well, there were some reports of the Xfer website struggling under the weight of all the traffic when Serum 2 was first released.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But that seems to have been sorted out now. And a few people mentioned that there might be a bit of a learning curve with some of the new features.
Yeah, that's understandable.
It's a lot to take in. But the interface is still very familiar.
That's good.
So you're not starting from scratch.
Right. But overall, the feeling is incredibly positive.
Incredibly positive. People are genuinely excited about this update.
And they should be.
They should be. It's a game changer.
So let's bring it back to you, our listener. Why should you be excited about Serum 2?
Well, first of all, it's a free upgrade. If you own Serum 1, you get all of this for free.
That's huge.
It's massive. And even if you don't own Serum 1, it's still an incredible value for the price.
Definitely.
The new oscillator types, the effects, the workflow improvements, it all adds up to a synth that can do pretty much anything.
It's like having a whole studio's worth of sound design tools in one plugin.
Exactly. You can create any sound you can imagine with this thing.
It's inspiring just thinking about it.
It is.
So let's recap. Serum 2 is a massive update, bringing 4 new oscillator types, dual filters, tons of new effects, a whole new workflow, and countless other improvements.
And it's free.
And it's free.
For Serum 1 owners, at least.
Right. This is truly a landmark release in the world of synthesis.
Absolutely. It's going to change the way people make music.
So here's a final thought for you, our listener. With Serum 2 blurring the lines between synthesis and sampling, what new sonic landscapes will you create? What unheard of sounds will you bring to life? What musical boundaries will you push?
The possibilities are endless.
They really are. So go out there, explore, experiment, and create something amazing.
And have fun doing it.
Always have fun. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Serum 2.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep those creative juices flowing.
Keep them flowing.
And keep making amazing music.
Cheers to that.